Welcome to Terrain Creations. Today we'll be talking about basic tools. We've got our nice strip tape. This I picked up at the dollar store, like $1.50. Paintbrush holder. Holds all your paintbrushes and various other small type tools that you may need in your modeling adventures. For instance, a nice triangular file with file holder. Classic black marker with a fine tip. Wood carving implements. This one's a round or V gouge. Good for putting on wood grain. A guarded blade knife. Remove the guard and you're cutting. One of the most important small objects that you're going to need is strip sandpaper. You take a set of tin snips and slice it right off the sheet. This allows you to work small objects. This is a very heavy grit. I think that's an 80. Down to about 240 is useful. The 240 tends to be a pretty thin back, so 80 for all your basic rounding off efforts. Next up we have the type of cement that I actually use. This is Tamiya cement, medium weight, not the lightweight stuff, that's for your tiny battleship models and what such, but for what we're using it for on larger spruce stuff, it works great. A tray to hold your small crafted components. Super useful. I actually got it out of a multi-area bin holder, just kept it. The classic Olfa knife. This is a snap-off blade knife. If you don't understand how to use these, I'm pretty sure there's a video out there that will explain the safety features and the not safety features of all Olfa products. Never forget to have more than one blade. So a pack of blades is not a bad idea. The mat itself. I had a lot of problems with it sliding around, so I've taped it down on 3 corners with tuck tape. Sprue cutters. These I ordered online. They're made in Italy and they're excellent. And then there's a set that I got with a Warhammer paint set. Not as good. Their machining is rougher, their size is increased, and there's, a little bit of smoothness difference between the two when you're cutting sprues. So we're going to start with the black ones here. Grab a sprue. This is a used up sprue from Sigmar Minis. Snap. Honestly, both work, but if you're trying to do your finer work, the thinner tipped ones from Italy seem to work better. Now you can pick any size of these that you want, but I prefer a steel ruler. You can't break a steel ruler, and I like the 18-inch ones. You can get them 6-inch and up. Get one with both metric and imperial units. And this is my favorite thing. I use this every time. This is a 2x4 with Super 77 spray adhesive sprayed on it. A correctly sized piece of sandpaper, in this case 80 grit. Press it down starting at one end, and it'll stay stuck on there forever. So I use this to flatten stuff off so that it sits nice on the table when you're done modeling, or even sanding pieces as they come up. Oh, and then you've got, well, what are we going to do with all the stuff that's clogged up on it? This is actually just a big gum eraser. You get these at woodworking stores. Now what they're for is cleaning out belt sander belts. But since it's sandpaper, it works just as well on, regular sandpaper. Rub it back and forth like this, changing the surface slightly as you rub it back and forth, and it cleans up your grit. Make more than one of these. You're going to need various different finishes on the stuff that you're creating. Flat's good, have extra sandpaper, 600, 240, 400, 150. I just stuck them on there randomly as I had strips left over. Super 77 spray adhesive from 3M. Spray it on the back, roll it out on there. Keep them clean. So I use primarily two-part epoxy to craft my base terrain. And this is Epoxy Sculpt. You can get this online, and it's great. It is technically inferior, however, to something like Milliput, but it's also a tenth of the price. Work it in layers, let it harden, and then stack up layers on top. I also use wood and stones, things like that. Get some of these. These are paint pots, dollar store. I think I got 3 for $1.50. You can cut them off from each other. They snap down real tight. Paint's good for about a month in those. Little needle nose pliers. Super useful if you want to bend or pull stuff, but what I use them for is actually working mechanics wire, which is a 16 gauge mild steel wire that comes in rolls of about 200 feet. Bend, or use your clippers to snap it 90% of the way through and just bend it off. I use those for bars or internal reinforcement, bars for grates and jail cells. It's about the right size for 24mm models. Fiskars, scissors. Keep the sides of the blades clean. You're going to be cutting tape and paper with these. And next to my workspace, I always keep a bunch of wood. Mixing sticks or pieces you might want to try out against your model. It's great stuff, and it's good to have on hand. And this is a kit I put together from some stuff I ordered online. This is an extruder in here, and it came with a bunch of frankly junky modeling tools. You put your plate in the front there by unscrewing the front, and the back has a long aluminum screw. So basically you run the aluminum screw down the length after you've stuck your epoxy sculpt in there in a tube shape. And then you would place your back cap in and stick your screw in, tighten it down, and I use an electric drill, and I just run it out. You have to be careful with your cleaning. As you could see in the tube earlier, I haven't been. And it is epoxy, so it's stuck in there. To clean that out, I use a great big drill bit and my electric drill and a vise. So these are ball tools. They're actually really nice. They came with that kit, including the extruder, and they're good for rounding out stuff. These have mega sprue lines on them, so they're only the most basic tool. I just shoved it all in the same kit, and this is a sprue line remover. This came with my Warhammer paint set, and just watch this. If you've got a sharp sprue line and a good grip on it, you can take it off really nice. So after all this fun stuff is paints. With paints, I like to keep them organized, but in a way you can see the caps, because the caps always show you what's color in there. So I got some of these at the dollar store, $1.50 a pop. The paints, $6 a pop or more. Stone, Edgin Gray. That one's empty, but I'm keeping the bottle for mixing. Add black, whatever other colors, lighten it up with whites, and rock and roll. I like a dark base layer. So in keeping your paints organized, these ones are more for miniatures themselves. Keep them separate from your base paints, so you're not trying to put a shade or a layer as a base. So when you're painting, always have a supply of somewhere to dip your paint. I use both a flat tray and a set of these. Got 5 for $1.50 at the dollar store. Little catches on there to keep your brushes from rolling around. You can put a light pool of water and another one for cleaning and swishing them around. They're easy to hold on to, so get a whole bunch and clean them out. Now this is my primary adhesive for building terrain. It's got to be thick, it's got to be high viscosity, and have a large volume, because you can use quite a bit of it. Bought this a couple months ago and I've used a quarter of it so far. 25 bucks on sale. These are excellent. They're little, well, they're pointers. So what you do is you take them out of there. They're fitted to a bottle specifically. I got these at KMS Tools and Equipment in Canada here. And they are my favorite thing in the world. So what you do is you pop them out of the package here. I'm having a little fun with that. And what it is it's a tiny little spout. It looks like a piece of medical equipment. Basically, you shove it onto the top there, and it's tight fit. Squeeze it down, and now you have a precision applicator. That's the best. Not only will you occasionally stick yourself with glue, if you put too much on, it always oozes out. So just put the exact right amount on there. Boop. And there you go. No excess. If it's thick, high viscosity, it actually soaks into hardwoods and somewhat to softwoods and to anything else. There you go. Precision applicator. Worth the money if you can find them. I think those were $6 for 5. But they don't go bad immediately. There's such a low volume in there that the glue only hardens up over time. So what I do is I just clip it off. So I kept this one, which was one of those, for larger application work. If it hardens up in the tip, take your Olfa knife or your scissors, snip off the tip exactly where it was, and you're good to go. It'll flow again. Remove them after every use. Next we have Imperial tape measure, simple pencil, and then we have wet palettes. Now you have to soak these before you use them. I just slop them right out on my cutting mat there. They have 2 sides. Make sure to use the correct side. You don't have to buy this type, obviously, but a wet palette needs to be pre-soaked. So you have a proper side and a side with printed on it, so you don't use that side. It's for the other side. Work your brushes on this and place your paints on it, and they'll stay moist. Giving you 50% greater working time on average. And that way you don't waste as much paint. So if you're doing repeated models, just put a bunch on there. Now this is the most important thing that I use. It's a piece of paper. You can get lined, or this is actually a notepad paper. And what you use this for is to define the shape of your base pieces. I like to use 1-inch grid because 24mm miniatures have 1-inch bases approximately. So you just mark on your grid lines how long you want your thing to be. In this case, 4 inches in length. And just kind of draw yourself a guideline. You'd mix up your epoxy and brick it or whatever. In this case, I have a prepared window scene. Now, when you're adding more to it, it's a pain to try to hang on to it. So what you do is you just take your fine glue tip and add a few points to it. When you're done with it, you rip it off the paper and sand the bottom again. Easy and done. So find your length, stick it down. The thick stuff will soak in to the paper almost immediately, but it will not stick to the base if you didn't put too much on there. And done. Now you can rotate, play with, and have a relatively stable but mobile base. The thicker the paper, the better, but once you get to a certain thickness like cereal box cardboard, no, don't go that thick. When it's new, you're going to be flipping it around a whole bunch, so that's how that is.